What we do here matters, because what we don't do matters even more.
We need to continue to push, and we at ADAO are going to continue to push the Surgeon General of the United States.
As you know, the United States continues to use asbestos, and that indeed is a barrier to others stopping its use.
The most horrific part of this whole story is that it is preventable.
Good afternoon. My name is Brent Kynoch, the Managing Director of the Environmental Information Association, and I had the opportunity to introduce myself to you this morning. Oh, Linda, I'll take that. You don't have to flip it for me. I'll do it. Maybe I should let John do it for me.
No, I can shake your hand.
I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about preventing do-it-yourself home exposure, and I think I'm going to break this down into about 5 steps that will make things relatively easy for you in understanding how to prevent exposure in terms of trying to do anything yourself in your home relating to asbestos. First of all is awareness. You have to know where asbestos might exist in your home, and a great way to become aware is to use the nice flyer that ADAO has produced, showing you the kinds of materials that exist both on the outside and the inside of your home that are likely to contain asbestos. The first one was the outside of the home, and the other is the inside of the home. These are available in print form and also available on the ADAO website as well. Second step, I want you, of course, to understand the do's and don'ts relating to asbestos in the home. And they're relatively simple. Leave asbestos alone. To the greatest extent that you're able, leave it alone, don't touch it. In areas where you've got to do work around asbestos-containing materials, keep those activities to a minimum. Take every precaution possible to avoid damaging any asbestos-containing materials or any materials that might possibly contain asbestos as well. And if you have some work to be done in your home, then have it done by licensed, trained, accredited professionals. This kind of defeats the whole purpose of do-it-yourself now, doesn't it? So the real rule in terms of do-it-yourself is don't. Please. Use persons who are properly trained and properly licensed to do this work so you're not exposing yourself and your loved ones to asbestos exposure. The simple message, and I'm only partway through this, but the simple message to you is if you have asbestos-containing materials in your home and you can leave them alone, and you can avoid damaging those materials, then leave them alone. If you feel like some work needs to be done on them, bring a professional in to do it. I'm not going to end now, because I've got a few more minutes and I want to stand up here and talk. Continuing with the do's and don'ts. Don't do any dusting, sweeping, or vacuuming of debris that might contain asbestos. So even if you don't know whether the materials that may have degraded and might be on your floor are asbestos containing or not, treat them as though they are asbestos containing. And what I want you to do is to wet wipe those materials and use a HEPA filtered vacuum cleaner if you have to clean those up. Certainly, I don't want you to damage those materials by sawing, sanding, scraping, or cutting those materials as well. I don't want you to use any abrasive pads or brushes on flooring or floor tiles that might contain asbestos. And the last one is one that I've seen way too often, and it's really scary. And that is, don't do any sanding to try to level flooring before you put a new floor down. I've seen instances where even contractors who should know better have gone into persons' homes, pulled up an asbestos-containing flooring, only to have a mastic left behind, which also contains asbestos. They've then sanded the mastic so they could put down a new flooring and have left an incredible asbestos exposure problem behind in the home. So step 3, if you feel like you do have material that's a suspect material, have it tested for asbestos. Really no reason to have it tested unless you think you're going to need to damage or remove or do some kind of renovation that would disturb this material. Otherwise, I would say to you, treat it as though it is asbestos containing. and follow all the rules I've given you in step 2. But if you're going to test it, once again, it's not a do-it-yourself activity. Bring in a qualified professional, a qualified asbestos inspector to have that material sampled and then have that sample analyzed by an accredited laboratory as well. Step number 4, if we have to do some removal or some repair of those asbestos-containing materials, what's the message again? Don't do it yourself. Hire a qualified, accredited asbestos abatement contractor. And then a couple other little rules for how you might do that. Get a written contract that specifies that the contractor is going to follow all of the applicable regulations, both federal, state, and local if there are some. The other thing you should ask for is you should see some training certificates or licenses for every person that comes into your home to do any work, because every person doing work is required to be licensed in the United States of America. And you might also check with the Better Business Bureau to see if there's any information on past performance of this contractor. Have they had any complaints, or are they an A1 firm? And I won't go through all these procedures, but these are the kinds of things that a contractor should be doing when they are doing asbestos abatement activity in your home. Same kinds of things that happen in commercial facilities as well, and that is we make sure that the area where the asbestos abatement work is going to be done is completely sealed from the rest of the home. We introduce negative air machines to make sure that the work area is under a negative pressure relative to the rest of the home, and that means that if asbestos fibers are released, they stay in the work area instead of pushing them out to the rest of the home. The area is clearly marked as a hazard, and the contractor follows other engineering controls as well to make sure that the asbestos does not become airborne to the greatest extent possible. And then lastly, they properly dispose of that material. Step 5 is to clear the area. That means after the work is complete, bring that firm back that did the testing for you before and ask them to take an air sample in that area in accordance with all of your local regulations to show that that area is indeed clear and the asbestos fibers have been removed and there's not going to be an exposure concern when you go back in. Remember, they say if you say it 3 times, it actually sticks in people's heads. Don't do any asbestos work yourself. So there really, as I said before, is not a do-it-yourself option for asbestos, except to leave it alone. And please don't disturb it. There's a great deal of resources out there in terms of going back to step number 1, and that's awareness, that I want to bring to your attention that I think can help any of us if we do anticipate doing asbestos work in our home. EPA, that website related to asbestos for the federal EPA has gotten quite good in terms of the information that's available, and this is a screenshot of the EPA website. A great deal of information there, and you can drill down on asbestos in the home, and some great questions to be answered there. Does the EPA have money available for homeowners, so on and so forth. There's some great things in there as well. I've drilled down on one, which I think you might find interesting, that I wanted to bring to your attention today. Does the home seller have to disclose to a potential buyer that the home contains asbestos? What's the answer say? No, you don't. It's a little bit scary. Legal precedent might say otherwise, but there is no law requiring that, that the presence of asbestos is disclosed as well. You can also look beyond the federal and look to state and local agencies. We're in the state of Virginia, so I wanted to point out what the state of Virginia has regarding information on asbestos. So in terms of the awareness, there are a lot of resources available for your use out there. And then we can even look at other states as well. California, I had to do this for you, Linda, has some great information about asbestos in the home and the workplace. So covering again the 5 steps related to preventing do-it-yourself exposure. First of all, make yourself aware. Know the do's and don'ts of dealing with asbestos. If you feel like you need to damage or contact material that possibly contains asbestos, have it tested by a qualified firm. If you have to remove that material as part of a renovation effort, make sure it's done by a properly licensed and trained firm. And lastly, make sure you clear the area. Thank you very much.